Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. We're here. We're back at it again, and we're going to get on into it. But before we do, as always, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. You know, I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. With that being said, here's a quick word from our sponsors.
Organic herbs and botanicals, skincare and edibles, wellness for body and mind. The Brothers Apothecary. Fine teas and remedies. Ronald Records. From indie gems to classic hits, discover the heart of local music. With live shows all the time, up close and personal, and regular releases on their in-house label. Ronald Records. Supporting the community, one track at a time.
All right. Thank you all so much for watching again. Shout out The Brothers Apothecary, Ronald Records, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get on into it. Here is today's guest.
Hey, it's DJ Pyum.
Hello. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, who you are, where you're from, what you do. Give us that Tinder profile of your involvement with music.
All right. I'm DJ Pyum. I'm a DJ. I'm also a music producer, audio engineer.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And what got you into music initially?
Man, so initially, I've always been a fan of music.
Mm-hmm.
Grew up a fan of music.
Mm-hmm.
I was a CD and cassette tape generation.
Okay. Yeah.
And
classics.
Yes. And when I was in college, actually, I started messing around with Microsoft Windows Sound Recorder. And you could do 1-minute clips and used to make my own little, voice recordings with audio from songs.
Okay.
Make little mini mixes. And then I had someone I knew was doing live music. And they were at a show, and the show was recorded in Pro Tools. And he hit me up after the show and was like, hey, do you want to go with me? We're going to go and check out the live recording that we did. So we went to this bar, and they had a closet. And inside that closet was a guy with a Pro Tools setup, probably Pro Tools 1, right? Or something. It was such a long time ago. And I got to see the magic of audio engineering and recording. And I was hooked from then on out. So that's really how I got the bug to really start kind of pursuing that. And so after that, I kind of figured out what I wanted to do. And I wanted to learn how to record music and produce music and make music. And that's where I thought I wanted to go, at least at the time. And so I continued making moves that direction. I moved back home. I got a job at a CD store at Sam Goody because I didn't know where else to be closer to music. And
shout out to Sam Goody.
Yeah, man. And a lady walked in one day, was buying 3 or 4 of the same records, of multiple records. And I kind of was kind of a smart ass, teenager, 19, 20, 21 years old. And I was like, hey, you do realize you're buying 3 copies of the Chronic album, right? She goes, oh yeah. And I was like, do you mind if I ask why? And she was like, oh, I have a record label. And I was like, really? Have you ever considered having an intern? She goes, well, I'd never considered that. Here's my card. Give me a call. So I called her. And I called again, and I called again, and I called again. And finally, she's like, why don't you come meet me at the studio? I was like, oh, okay. Geeking out, this is a studio? This is amazing. So I went and met with her. Then I met with her business partner, and I became an intern. And I really, at that point, kind of got my feet wet in the music industry where I was. They had an audio engineer of 30 plus years teach me how to be an engineer.
Oh, wow.
And I worked with the producer. There was a producer there, so he wrote and made songs, and I kind of really learned that process and met a lot of people in that process, right? And being in that area, and so that's really how I got started in the music industry.
Damn.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, that's I guess you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Exactly.
That's a pretty solid way to get into it.
It was. Yeah. And it was a lot of fun. So
yeah. Now I want to backpedal just a little bit. Was anybody else in your household or anybody around you musical growing up?
No one played instruments. some extended family did. I'm Persian American, so I have a lot of extended family here, and a big part of the Persian culture is music. And so I was always around people listening to music. Every get together had people dancing and listening to music. Some people would play like on a drum and just like, maybe we didn't have any actual music playing, but we were making music and people were just singing along and dancing. And so I was kind of grew up in the culture of music.
Yeah. I was always around you for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And then when your friend asked if you wanted to go check out the mixing of the recorded session, had you already expressed an interest in that like experience more? Were they like, hey, I think this would be something you'd be into? Or were they just like, hey, would you go with me so I have somebody to go with me?
That's such a long time ago. It's kind of hard to remember. But
Fair.
I mean, he knew I was into music too. And so I think that kind of helped. You know what I mean? I think that he was probably like, okay, I know he'll say yes. So whether he just wanted me to be there with him or he really was like, hey, let me show you something you haven't seen. Regardless, it was an amazing experience.
Okay, cool.
It really, like seeing Pro Tools on a computer, like
it's a whole new world.
It's a whole new world. Like you're like, oh, this is a thing. You know what I mean? Like, so it was really cool.
Yeah, I remember the first time I like went with a band I was in to like what we thought was like a legit studio space.
Right.
And saw like he had the biggest monitor and he had all these speakers and all these cables and like this room where all his stuff was mic'd up and like he had built the wall with the glass and everything. And we were like, well, this is the most legit thing ever.
Yeah.
And you feel like you're in like a spaceship command center.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole different experience.
Yeah. Definitely.
And then getting back to when you joined up with the record label.
Yes.
How long did you spend like there learning before they like let you take the wheel, or like were you always just kind of the student there?
I did two things. So that's a great question. So the business was set up with the lady did the business side of everything. Shout out to Victoria. But she knew the music industry. And so she taught me the music industry, how to get in places, how to speak to people, how to meet people, and how to get into different places that might be hard to get in. And then Zach, shout out to Zach, he did the production. So they both taught me both sides of it. And then I became incorporated into the business. I was the audio engineer, so I'd spend the daytime with her and we'd be making calls, and it would be simple stuff sometimes, like taking magazines to record shops in Portland, right? You know, magazines that she wrote articles for example, or teaching me how to network and go in different places. And then she'd be like, okay, here's your task. You go, now that I've taught you do it, you go do it now, right? And the same thing with him. He'd be like, hey, he would write songs. I'd watch him write songs. He'd make beats. I'd watch him make beats. And so then I started doing that stuff too, right? And once I learned to audio engineer, then it'd be like, I'm gonna make my own songs, right? Just for fun. I never did anything with the songs, but I learned the process by doing it. You know what I mean?
Hands-on.
Very hands-on, yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I wouldn't say they handed me the keys, but I was driving the car with them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Definitely. They took their hands off the wheel.
And it was really cool. I mean, it wasn't cool, but after I left, shortly after, they kind of dissolved the business, and she was selling all the studio equipment, and I bought everything.
Oh, damn.
So I just, I had some things happen in my life that ended up with a little bit of money, and I said, how about this? And she was like, it's yours. And so I got a U-Haul and I packed up that studio and brought it home. You know what I mean? So
I love that.
Yeah.
I will say, because there's been a couple of times where I've had to sell some gear. It's always nice when it goes to somebody you know.
Exactly.
Like, when it goes to a good home.
Right.
Essentially, like it makes you feel better about parting with equipment for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
And now I guess because it sounds like you were pretty full on in that. You were doing that in its own way. And then you had a home studio full of real studio equipment.
Dude, yeah.
When did the transition into DJing happen?
So it was about 10 years later. People always knew I did music. I produced music and did stuff like that. And people would always hit me up like, hey, can you DJ my wedding? Like, as my friends were getting married and people I knew were getting married, they'd be like, can you DJ our wedding? I was like, well, I could DJ, but I don't have.
Yeah, I don't have any DJ
Like
stuff.
I had a little Newmark like controller that I would make mixes for myself at home and learn to DJ a little bit and learn to blend and all that other stuff. And so I used to make mixes for myself, and then I'd play them for people, and they'd be like, "Oh, cool, yeah, give me a copy of your mix. Like I want to listen to it on my car ride, or give me that CD of that mix you have, right?" And so it wasn't just a mixtape CD where people had song after song after song. I truly mixed them, right?
Yeah.
And so one guy finally convinced me, was like, "Dude, I would really love you to DJ my wedding." And I was like,
I mean, I guess.
Yeah. And I was like, sweet. So I spent like $3,000 on equipment and made $600 DJing my first wedding. And from then on out, I was like, I could do weddings now. And so then I just started perfecting my craft and practicing. And of course, you've done music, so you get a new instrument or a new toy, right? You're like, I'm going to spend all my time learning about this, right? And you learn everything about every button, every function, every way of doing it, every way of screwing it up. Like you learn it all. And that's what I did as a DJ. And so I started practicing and practicing and practicing. And a wedding turned into pool parties, turned into private parties, turned into school dances. And now it's
just
Rip City and Blazer games and concerts and whatever else comes my way,
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well, definitely excited to hear more about that.
Yeah.
But before we do, I do have a couple foundation questions I like to check in with everybody on. And this first one, it's one we ask early, it's one we ask often, and it's definitely a crowd favorite. What was the first album you ever bought with your own money?
Oh, man. With my own money.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of, I think with my own money would have been the first Friday movie soundtrack.
Okay. Quality jam.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's probably the first one I bought with my own money. I mean, I could tell you my first CD. I could tell you my first hip hop album. I could tell you, you know what I mean? But
you know what are both of those now? I'm curious.
First CD, I got 2 CDs together for Christmas when I was a kid. It was, I don't remember which album, but it was a Mariah Carey album because I was a huge Mariah Carey fan.
As we all should be. Yeah, respectfully.
And MC Hammer's album, the one with you can't touch this. Those were my first. I got as a gift for Christmas. And then I think that following Christmas, I got the Chronic album. I had the MTV used to put out like MTV Party to Go 7, 8, 9, 10. I had one of those, and Let Me Ride by Dr. Dre was on it, and I fell in love with that song. So I asked my aunt for the Chronic album, and my aunt got it to me. Of course, it's my parents to see me, and they open it up, and it's got a marijuana leaf. They're like, "What did you buy our son?" Right? But from then on out, I was hooked on hip hop, and I mean, it's the Chronic.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's one of the best albums ever made. So,
it's definitely in the quintessential top 5 for
absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And then what was one of the first live shows you ever went to that was like specifically one you wanted to go to?
So that's funny. It was Bone Thugs and Harmony's album, like their show. Monica opened it and Keith Sweat closed it.
Whoa.
And it was an amazing show because I remember, I think Busy Bone was pretty much drunk at that show and just running up and down the aisles. And I kept like throwing him back on stage. And then Keith Sweat was like dry humping the stage. And I was with my mom and my brother, my younger brother. And I remember my mom like covering our eyes. And we'd be like, stop. Like, we can watch this. Like, I don't know how old we were at this point. We were probably like 14 or something like that. But yeah, that was the first show I ever went to.
Oh yeah. I imagine that was a rad experience.
It was amazing. Like, I think up until like 5 years ago, I still had my t-shirt from that concert. And I don't know why I got rid of it, but I did.
Hey, sometimes those things happen.
Yeah.
All right. And then before we officially get into it, and I mean, you've already kind of touched on a lot of this. So if there's not a specific answer to this, that's totally fine. But do you have a defining moment where like you decided you wanted to take music more seriously?
Yeah, I think I have that for both DJing and producing. I think as a DJ, it was probably my 3rd year of doing events. And I really started to pick up events. Like at that point, I had repeat customers when it came to school dances, pool party. I used to do a lot of pool parties, and I realized I could not only just do this for fun, but I could do this and make some decent money doing it.
Yeah.
So I think as a DJ, that was it. As a music producer, it probably wasn't even until a couple years ago where I was really like, this is my passion.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I've always enjoyed doing. I want to take it seriously now, and I want to really put myself out there as a producer. It's not like I'm making beats for myself to listen to in the car, right? Like it was more like people were giving me feedback, like, "Hey, we like what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
We want to work with you." And I was like, "Yeah, whatever."
Yeah.
And I was like, "You know what? I want to work with you too." You know what I mean? So I think those are the kind of the two defining moments for both those.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you for sharing those.
Absolutely.
All right. Now let's go ahead and let's get on into you in the present day.
Okay.
We are going to get a super easy one out of the way. How'd you pick the name?
DJ Pyum.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Pyum's my name.
Oh, easy enough.
So, I've gone under a couple different names over the years for different things.
What were some of the other ones?
DJ, I went under DJ Layden for a while, for a short period of time, because it was like my kids' names both split in half. And so I do this I love my kids, right? And then I was like, no, that's corny. And then, and so I went with DJ Pyum because at the time I was doing a lot of weddings.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had some weird name like DJ Scab Picker or something like that, like a bride's not going to look at that DJ name and be like, yeah, we want to hire him and give him money, right?
Yeah.
And then I used to pretend to rap and produce when I was like early in, and I went under the name Persian Style. So that was my official nickname I gave myself for a while, and then I grew up. So
fair enough. Fair enough. Well, thank you for sharing all of that.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then let's talk about your process a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, I'm a pretend DJ, so I apologize. Some of these questions don't quite pose themselves in the way.
You're good.
But like, we'll start with an easy one. When it comes to like track selection.
Yeah.
I guess, and you do a lot of events, so like this may be like different from case to case, but like when you're just general DJing settings, how do you go about picking the music when it's your choice?
Well, I think it depends on the crowd, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the event, the type of event that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'd really say, for me, because I like to see people have fun. Mm-hmm. Like I want to bring energy to the sets that I have.
So just 10 hours of the chicken dance.
Cotton Eye Joe on repeat.
Oh God.
Backdrop. No, it really is about the songs that give people energy, right? And the things that to me give me energy is if you know the song and you can sing along, like you're gonna do it.
Yeah.
And if it has a good beat, like a good sounding rhythm, you know what I mean? And it feels good. Like music to me is very felt. And so if I'm feeling it, I'm gonna watch out and see how everybody else is feeling. And it doesn't always work out that way, right? You could play song. I've cut to songs that kill it at 90% events, and you put it on, and people are just kind of like, and they just walk off.
Don't
and you're
stop
like,
believing. This
right,
is
yeah. And so it's a lot of getting to know how people react and watching people. And so if I'm putting a set together, I don't always have a game plan. I over prepare. So like, let's say I have a 2-hour set, I'm putting 4 hours of music in there because I'm watching people and I'm watching how people react to the music I'm playing, especially if it's a scenario where people are dancing.
Yeah.
I'll watch the same 20, 30 people dance for 2-3 songs, and I'll cut it to something completely different on purpose. I'm going to kick at least half of them off the dance floor, get your butt back to the bar, get another drink, and those people who have been like nodding their heads, singing along, and stomping their feet, I'm going to try to pull them up to the dance floor.
Okay.
Maybe 2 minutes into it, cutting it back to something else that those people who just
got those first people, I
watched them take a couple swigs. I'm going to watch them put it down and run their butt back to the dance floor. You know what I mean? And you really just fill it up. So
gotcha.
That's kind of how I work the floor, I guess.
Yeah, so you kind of just bring a grip of things and wait to see what people go for.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, I do that.
Absolutely.
Do you have any like go-to tracks? Like you said, what are one of the ones that like kill for the 90%?
Well, it really
you don't have to give away all your
on the gig, right? If you're talking like a high school dance right now, Fiend by Travis Scott.
Okay,
Like,
yep.
There isn't one kid, like, I don't think they know 90% of the words, but they know the word fiend, and they jump and they go crazy to Fiend, or Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter, you know, songs like that right now. If I'm doing like a even a wedding, I tend to kind of go back and forth between newer and older. You know, you could play some Whitney, you could play Montel Jordan, you can play a lot of newer stuff. I love Chris Brown, so sometimes I'll slip a Chris Brown song in here and there, or there's so much music.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. There's just so much you could go with. You know, so.
Yeah. And like you said, you do a lot of like situations where like you're just kind of, I imagine you have a kind of a wide window of prepared stuff.
Oh yeah.
And I guess, and I promise I won't stick on the track selection thing
You're
for much
good.
longer.
No, I like this. You're good.
The biggest question I always have is, how do you decide when to put in newer music? So like stuff that hasn't been out for very long. Like, do you wait and see if something hits? Do you like bring stuff in early and just hope it's going to land? Like what makes you decide to bring in a track that hasn't been out for a while?
It's very energy driven, right? So for me, as a DJ, especially with like Serato stems these days, you have the ability to really, you could play the instrumental of a track and still play the original track. You know what I mean? Or like you could play the vocals from one track and the instrumental of the new track, right? So sometimes I'll blend in like that, or like remix live a song and then cut to the new song and then watch like how are they reacting to it. Sometimes, a lot of times I'll bring it in a little bit into an event. Like I won't just start off with a new track, but then sometimes I do too. It just depends on the type of event, because if you got to think of a lot of events, no matter what type of event it is, you don't have your majority of people at the very beginning of the event, right? And so you really got to get people warmed up to wanting to dance. And so the best way to do that, I've found, is play stuff that they're familiar with. Yep. Especially if there's drinking involved. People aren't as encouraged to dance at the very first drink versus the third drink, the fourth, the fifth, or whatever they're, you know what I mean? Like then they're like, I'm dancing to everything. Like I don't care what's playing, right? So...
Okay, gotcha. Well, thanks for going through that with me.
Absolutely.
Now let's turn more to settings.
Okay.
How do you navigate like smaller spaces versus like larger spaces? What are the like the differences between the two?
I think in a smaller space, obviously it's a little more intimate, right? People are closer to you, or or sometimes you just got to work harder to get people on the dance floor because it's not as packed, right? It's a little more intimidating for more of the shy folks. So. I think in a smaller space, I tend to play stuff that's more familiar, so it really like resonates with people. Versus in a bigger space, once you've got a crowd and you've got a pretty big crowd, then you can play some of the maybe lesser known stuff. But in general, as a DJ, I typically play stuff that people know. I don't often, I'm not breaking records at my event. You know what I mean? Like I'm not breaking the new so-and-so record because I'm not that DJ. You know what I mean? So I'm not DJ Khaled. Unfortunately. Not yet.
I got you.
DJ Pyum's coming, but hey.
Hell yeah. And then I do want to talk a little bit more about you on the production side.
Yeah.
But before we transition to that, you are primarily like an events DJ. That seems to be kind of your mainstay. But you also have a pretty cool gig as the Rip City Remix DJ. Yeah. Or at least one of them. Can you tell us like how you came about that and some of like the ins and outs?
Yeah. So DJ OG1, he's the Blazers DJ. I've known him. So when I worked at Power Driving Records, he was the record label's DJ.
Oh, okay.
I know him from back then.
Yeah.
And so as I transitioned from just doing private events and I really wanted to kind of make my way to the community, doing shows and working with artists, I connected with him. He got me connected. He would do these networking events and he would talk about opportunities at these events, at these networking events. So as he's talking about these opportunities, I'm like, hey, I would love to try that out. I would love to do this. I mean, I told him once, I would love the DJ Blazer game. Yeah. And then when the Rip City thing came about, he posted about it and I was like, hey, I'm going to go try out. And that's basically what it was. He put together like a seminar where they talked, to DJs and explained like how to navigate in the industry, not giving away, but like sharing a lot of his knowledge that he's learned over the years. And so with that, I learned from him, which is amazing, and then I did my tryout and I just happened to make it. So it was really cool to be one of the inaugural season DJs for the Rip City remix. It was a really cool experience. And now I'm doing stuff with Rip City and with the Blazers. So it's a really cool experience. I mean, growing up a Blazer fan, just like, is there anything other than making the team? Like, there's nothing better.
that would be the story of the lifetime.
Right.
Started as the DJ, now I'm the point guard.
Yeah. I mean, in some of the years, I probably could have played on, not really, but but I'm just a lifetime Blazer fan.
Yeah,
it's an experience.
In that role, did you ever get to interact with like the team directly?
Minutely, a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, you really just kind of stay out of their way.
That's fair.
Players would come and talk to you, or they, during warm-ups, they shout out, "Hey, play Rod Wave, or play this, or play that," and I'm like, "I got you," you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or even after the game, a lot of times when I would be leaving the stadium, they would be leaving the stadium too. So you see them out like, "Hey, what's up, man?" You introduce yourself and maybe, "Hey, you played a good game today," and just have like small talk.
Yeah.
Like that. So it was cool.
I dig that.
Yeah.
Is where you DJ a good seat? Like, is it a cool spot to like watch the game?
It was amazing because we were on the court. So,
okay.
Like last season, I was on the court. The bench was 7 feet. The end of the bench was like 7 feet from where I was. So you're hearing every conversation. You're hearing every comment to the ref. You're hearing the comments to the coach. You're hearing the comments to each other. You're hearing them talk crap to the guys on the court.
The shoe squeaks are probably piercing.
Oh, yeah. Well, like Lance Stevenson was on one of the other teams last year, and he was pretty famous for kind of being a heckler in the game, for lack of better terms. And so you would see players like talk crap to him, you know what I mean? And you'd kind of see it go back and forth, and you'd be like, "Oh, okay, this is cool, man."
Yeah.
You know what? This is not something you see from the seats in the stadium, you know what I mean? Or here, really.
Yeah, because it's like you're so far away by comparison, but on the on the floor, they're all right there. They're all in ear's length.
Yeah, and I mean, and like everybody else says, you're so close to them, you realize how freaking tall those guys are.
Oh, they are enormous. Yeah.
Like, holy cow, I thought I was a decent size until I met every single one of you. And then I'm like, I'm just short.
Yeah, you are a small person by comparison.
Yeah.
Oh man, now I can never stand next to them. I would just be like, "Hello."
I know, right? Right?
Hell yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
But now let's go ahead and let's move to more of your production experience in the present. Okay. I asked everybody this. What DAW do you use?
Currently, I use Ableton.
Cool. Don't have to edit that in.
Yeah. So, but I've used a lot. So I started off on Pro Tools. For a short period of time, I used Logic. Short period of time, and I didn't like it.
I started on Logic 8.
Okay.
Like that was my original production software.
So yeah, Pro Tools was it for me. And then a friend of mine was like, "Hey, I got Ableton. You want my key code?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't have to use a hack version of something for once, So I really got into it. Yeah, allegedly, right? Yeah. And so I started using Ableton, and then another friend of mine gave me his Push 1, which was game changers. I was like, "Oh, I could make beats very easily in this now." You know what I mean? And so, excuse me. So that's really what I use.
I got to give credit where it's due. I don't think there's any software that's the wrong software to use, first of all. If you're using anything to make music, you're doing it right. But the fact that Ableton took the time to make like a full piece of gear dedicated to the creation aspect, not just like the mixing side of things,
of course,
but to the actual like creation process of their program that is theirs. It's not like a third, I know a guy like was involved in it, I believe, but like they made one that is just like, this is made for you to thrive in our software.
Yeah.
That just made my heart feel so good when it came out. And now to see where they're going with it now, with like the Push 2's been a while, the Move just came out. I don't know if you're familiar with this.
No.
It's their standalone it's battery power. Yeah, it's like half a push with a battery in it.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah.
I've never played with them. I've heard of it.
It's like new. I don't know if it's even made it into store. It probably has. I'm not too tapped in on that part of it, but check it out. It is really cool from what I've seen so far.
Oh, that's awesome.
But we're not here to talk about gear that's out there.
We could talk about hours on that.
Oh, for sure. But I do want to stay with the technical questions for a little bit. What like hardware are you using right now, other than the Push?
From a production standpoint,
yeah.
So I have I use really basic Scarlett audio interface, an older one, in fact. I have a really cool mic. It's by Manley.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah. So you got to remember, I have a lot of old gear from when I was at the studio, and then I sold a lot of gear also over the years, just because, like, I used to have a huge OmniRack desk and a Mackie Digital 8-bus mixer and a lot of stuff that you have to have space for, right?
Yep.
So my preamps, it's funny. I've had these preamps for 20 years, and I can't remember the name of them.
That's all right.
There's some dope preamps.
Yeah.
Like, they sound amazing. So vocal recording at my spot is it.
You're using a Manley mic. Like, that's kind of a good mic. Like,
it is a very good mic.
It doesn't matter which one you have. They are only really known for their quality pieces of equipment.
Right.
I mean, like, if you're like, I have something made by Telefunken, it's just going to be good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then as far as like what you work with, like as far as like clientele or like experiences go, are you mainly in like the realm of like rap and hip hop, or do you work with a lot of people?
So now mostly rap and hip hop. I'd say probably the first 10 years of producing on my own, it was mostly pop and a little bit of country.
Okay.
I'd get hit up by people like, oh, I want to remake this song. Can you remake it for me? Can I sing this song that already exists? I'd be like, sure, I'll record you doing it and make a little cash on the side. I mean, I think one of my first, actually, I worked for a big corporation for years, and the region manager at the time found out I did music, and he said, I will buy you a computer if you produce 10 songs for me.
Oh, so what a deal.
For the organization, we would take songs that were on the radio, I'd find the instrumental, we'd rewrite the lyrics, and then we would take someone that worked there, and I would record them and then make them sound really good. And we would then take that song, put a video to it that had to do with what the organization was kind of focusing on at the time. So if it's inclusion or safety or whatever. And we would make those songs, and then they would play the video at the meeting for the site. You know what I mean? So it was really cool. I did a lot of different genres in that time. I don't think I really did much. I think I've done maybe like one rock song. That's it. So,
okay, fair.
I mean, not really my realm. Not anything I'm not opposed to, just never really been put in that scenario, but a lot of pop, some country. But now, definitely, I mean, hip hop and R&B are my passion. Yeah. So they tend to be where I drive to, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And are you making like beats for people mainly, or like a lot, or are you like mainly focusing on like recording them?
Beats. Like I make a lot of beats. Okay. So I make a lot of beats. I share them with artists. I haven't recorded a lot of artists on my beats. This is kind of a newer thing for me.
Gotcha. Okay. So that's kind of where you're getting into right now.
This is where I'm getting into right now. And in fact, I was going to release the album like over the summer. I didn't do it. And I need to. I have like 7 albums worth of beats.
Well, surprise y'all. We have it.
So, I mean, I have some concepts that I've been working with. So, and things in my head, I think as an artist producer in that way, it's a little nerve-wracking to put your own stuff out versus put other people's stuff out or play other people's stuff. I mean, I've released one song ever, and it's a Christmas song of all songs.
Interesting.
So on Spotify or Apple Music or YouTube, you can find DJ Pyum's Carol of the Bells. So
okay.
Yeah. So, but I am going to be releasing more music. So
gotcha. Yeah. Definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah.
If you get a moment, you should check out Machado Majiga's episode. Shout out Machado. He has put out an insane amount of music.
Really?
It's just an insane amount of music.
Okay.
And he touches on like the reason why it's good to just put things out. And I'm not going to be able to vocalize it perfectly.
Right.
But he does a good job. So check that one out if you get a second.
Yeah.
Also, somebody once told me the hardest thing you can do is put out a track, and then the only thing that's harder after that is to put out another one.
Okay.
And so once you get past that threshold, it really does. It kind of snowballs itself.
All right.
So I'm definitely excited to see what you put out.
Oh yeah, man.
And now I guess I don't have too much more in this middle part, but I would love to know, because again, you've done a bunch of events, you've done a bunch of experiences. What are some of your like favorite moments from DJing? What are some things that just like, and like,
oh man,
the best of all, but like just like some really exciting, like ones that like stand out to you?
So I did a wedding in Bend, Oregon 3-4 years ago now. The couple had really good energy, and the groom was like, listen, I don't know if you hear this often, but I only want you to play music I give you for our wedding. I was like, okay. I mean, I like to like please the dance floor, right? Like, he's like, listen, all my buddies are into the music I like. We like a lot of like electronic, EDM, like music.
Yeah. Just 10 hours of school.
Like, seriously, like it was like, so he gave me a playlist of music that a lot of it that I hadn't heard before, but it was all music I loved, right? Like I fell in love with his playlist.
Okay.
And so I DJ'd their wedding. The wedding was beautiful. It was in a beautiful venue in Bend, you know, and it was probably I don't want to say it was the nicest wedding, pretty close to it.
Yeah.
But it was my favorite wedding to DJ to date in 10 years. So, and they got wild. Like he at one point was on top of the shoulders of his best man. They were partying hard. He had a helmet on, like a OSU. They all went to Oregon State, and he had an OSU helmet on, and then he was like fist bumping, and they're going crazy. And it was interesting because the wedding got shut down. Actually,
whoa!
Unfortunately, not because it was so amazing, even though it was, but because someone had dropped a glass on the floor, and a bunch of the women were not wearing shoes anymore.
Oh no!
And I think the mother of the groom or one of the close family members actually cut their foot open to the point that they had to shut down the wedding, and the ambulance came and took them off to go get the glass, take them to the hospital to get the glass out. So that was a crazy party. Like, I'd say the last Rip City game I did at the end of the season last year, the organization came to me and said, listen, you know, Jody Allen, who is the #1 in the estate of Paul Allen, and, you know, they own the Seahawks, the Blazers, and now Rip City, and who else knows what else is going to be at this game. And so is the #2 person, his name is Bert. And I didn't know who he is, you know, but I guess he was part of the whole Microsoft, you know, launch and everything. And it was interesting. They were like, you know, it's going to be very different than any of the other games. There'll be a lot of security around, and you're right next to them, so you can't. It was literally like the DJ booth ended here, and there was a guy standing there. He was like, "You can't step past this, right?" Like that's how important it was. But they gave me a couple songs. They were like, "Hey, we want you to incorporate this into the game." And of course, being the final game of the season, it was the most packed one that I had DJ'd all season.
Yeah.
So, of course, I brought my A game, as I do to every event.
Yeah.
You really you're like, okay, I'm not going to skip a single beat at this event, right? So it was a great event, and they had me play this computer song, which I'd never heard. It was like an 80s song about computers, and they had me play it, and I mixed it in with like a hip hop song, and so you couldn't quite hear it was coming in yet, and then it was playing, and he heard it, and he looked back at me, was like super like excited about it, and I was like, heck yeah, man.
Hell yeah.
That felt good. You know what I mean? Like and then the feedback I got from that game was really cool. So I mean, those are a couple, there's so many.
Yeah, no, totally.
I mean, I think I've had school dances where.
That was one I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
Like, what was the wildest like high school experience?
Well, you know, I had one school dance. It was a homecoming like 2 years ago where I remember like a couple students start sitting down. And I was like, why? Like, and they sat like right in front of where I was DJing. And I asked the girl, I go, why are you sitting? She goes, I'm so tired. I can't dance anymore, but I don't want to leave the dance floor. I'm having such a good time. And it was like a high school dance. She was like, will you come to my high school? Because our DJ sucks. You know, I was just like, tell them I'm available. You know, here's my card, you know, but like, you know, as a DJ, I think the biggest compliments is when a woman takes off her shoes because she's wearing heels and she realizes my feet hurt too much in these, right? I want to have a good time. People are sweating or they're like leaving to cool off and they're like, oh crap, you put this song on, I gotta make my way back out there. And I see that, right? You see it all because as a DJ, I'm also, I think a lot of people are people watchers. I'm a people watcher, right? So as a DJ, it's amazing because I'm watching people enjoy what I'm doing, right? And that's my gauge for how I'm doing, or maybe I need to make changes or adjustments. So I think that it felt good. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you're doing something right.
Hell yeah.
So
damn. Well, thank you for sharing all
yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Now, before we move on to the next portion, this next question is probably the densest question in the interview.
Okay.
But, you know, we've talked about your experiences, the actions, the reactions, but when it's just you and music, one-on-one,
yeah,
what does music give back to you?
Music is emotional for me. Music can either give me a lot of energy or it could help me relax. I mean, I think we all have a song, like when we're upset, we listen to an album or a song or an artist, right? But the same with happiness, right? Like when you're happy or you're excited, there's certain music. I mean, I think the creation of online music with playlists that you can create your own or probably helped everybody who loved music love it even more, right? Because it was just accessible to us. So I think music has helped me through a lot in my life, right? Some dark times, some happy times. And so music gives back to me peace. I think peace is the best way to put it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to some hypothetical questions.
All right. Let's do it.
And for these, sky's the limits. The questions are all made up, so the answers are allowed to be as well.
Okay.
But this first one's pretty straightforward, and you can answer it as producer or DJ or however you feel. But if there is any one person you could work with, the only requirement is they have to be alive.
Oh, man.
Who would you want to work with, and how would you want to work with them?
Well, if I still believe Tupac's alive, he's just hiding out somewhere. Can I say, no, I'm just kidding.
Damn, you actually got me. I was like, ooh, I had to think of an answer to this real quick.
So if an artist that's alive that I would want to work with, as a producer, I'm a huge Lil Wayne fan.
Hell yeah.
So, I mean, I think I've heard like 7 Wayne songs on my way here. You know what I mean? Like, to give you an example. So,
the first album I ever bought with my own money was The Carter.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. So, I mean, I think Wayne or Bone Thugs. I mean, I grew up listening to Bone Thugs. But there's so many dope artists out there today. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I want to work with all of them.
Yeah. Well, Lil Wayne, if you're watching,
Weezy, hit me up. Hit me up. We need that Washington, Louisiana connection.
Hell yeah. And then subsequently, who's a local artist that you're aware of that you haven't gotten to connect with yet, but you would like to?
It's funny. Like, I've worked with this artist, so Mighty. I actually talked about him earlier. Local artist. I recorded him when he was like 16 when I worked at the record label. That's how I know him. That's my connection with him. And we've been talking about connecting and we just haven't yet. So I think locally he's doing a lot.
Yeah.
Doing a lot of things. And so, especially on the sync licensing front, been really kind of killing it. So, well, not kind of, he's been killing it. So
yeah, very much so.
I think for him, to connect with him and just kind of get back to being in the studio with him, I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Let everybody know what to do. Add them in the comments. Let's see if we can make that happen.
Yeah, man. Shout out to Mighty, man.
Yeah. And then for this next one, like I said before, sky's the limits, and it's pretty literal in this sense. But if you could, and we'll go for DJing for this one. If you could DJ anywhere in the world, you wouldn't have to worry about crowd access or building stability or power. It was guaranteed the best lineup, guaranteed the best show. It doesn't have to be a venue. It could be anywhere. Where would you want to?
In the world? Man. I've never thought of that. If it's anywhere in the world, I want to go outside the United States.
Yeah.
I mean, how about Dubai? I'm thinking Dubai.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I mean, anybody who's never been to Dubai has to go at least once. I've been there. It's an amazing experience, but I think to do a show out in Dubai would be real cool.
They would definitely go bananas.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That'd be a lot of fun.
I heard they can control the weather there.
Probably. They
like, and technology wise, like they figured out a way to like infuse the clouds with water when they need more water.
Really?
And like it's a whole thing. Check it out.
Okay. Yeah.
But it exists.
Yeah.
And they explain it all. I'm not just, like I said, I'm not
right.
But they explain it much better than me.
Right.
That would definitely be rad for sure.
Yeah. Well, definitely I don't want to DJ in the rain over there, but I want to DJ over there.
No, for sure. And then to wrap up the hypothetical question.
Yeah.
If you could get one more album from anybody, they could be alive, they could be dead, they could have not put out an album in 100 years, they could have put out an album yesterday. Who would you want an album from?
So my brain goes to Tupac. I'm a huge Tupac fan. I think it's Tupac.
Okay.
But it'd have to be Tupac with some West Coast folks on it. You know what I mean? If we could get Nate Dogg back to, live to do a song with him, get Snoop on a couple tracks, get Dre to produce some, get Corrupt on there, get the whole West Coast, 90s, early 2000s West Coast folks together and do something with him. I think that'd be dope.
Hell yeah. He's one of the few artists where cause I've gotten that answer a lot, a fair amount of times, and a lot of times people are like, oh, well, I wish we could get a Tupac album now. I would love an unreleased early Tupac, something that just for some reason never saw the light of day, but was him when he was really pushing into it,
very conscious.
Yeah, just even something that he just didn't think was worth making it, just to see what was in process Tupac
right.
That I think would be kind of an interesting thing for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, but with that being said, we're gonna go ahead and start wrapping this up.
Okay.
What can we look forward to between, let's say, now and May?
Definitely my album.
You have a name picked out for it yet?
It is Office Beats.
Oh, okay.
It's a beat album. So the whole idea, the premise of it is that we go to work, and some workplaces don't allow you to play music. But if you listen to instrumentals, they'll let you get away with it. You know what I mean? So it's Office Beats. There's more to it than just beats. So, more to come on that.
Yeah, hell yeah.
You can catch me at a couple Blazer games, at a Rip City game. I'll be DJing, some of each. The Blazer games, in fact, I'll be there this Saturday.
Oh, cool.
At Dr. Jack's at the bar, that's attached to them. And then I'll be in the concourse later next month. And
well, damn it, I think this comes out right after that.
Does it? Okay,
yeah.
That's fine. So, yeah, I'll be around there. And I'm a DJ for an amazing artist and producer named Sayu Beats. So we have a couple shows that we're going to be putting together with some local artists.
Oh, yeah.
So definitely catch us at those as well.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah.
For this next one, go and look straight at the camera. Tell everybody how they can find you.
You can find me on social media under DJ Pyum. That's Pyum. Obviously, DJ is just DJ. You can find me on Spotify under DJ Pyum or Apple Music, or any of the streaming platforms. And then you can find my business, Northwest Entertainment Services, also on Instagram, Facebook, and then easily just djpyum.com. You can find me there and check out the content that I have and I put out, as well as the type of events. And if you're trying to tap in with me, find my phone number on there, man. Just hit me up, call me, text me. Let's do this. Let's work.
Hell yeah. And then any other plugs, any other shout outs, anybody else you want to put on while you're on here?
Shout out Sayu Beats, man. Super dope producer and artist here locally as well. And you, man, thank you for what you're doing and getting our name and everybody's name out there in the local scene. That's really appreciated.
Oh yeah, of course, man. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. With that being said, I've got one last question to go.
Let's go.
Before we do, I'm gonna steal the camera for just a second.
Yeah.
As always, y'all, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. And one more shout out to the Brothers Apothecary, Ronald Records, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. And with that being said, the final question. And this is entirely up to your interpretation.
Okay.
But in all of music,
yeah,
what is an album you feel is more on the obscure side? So it's a deep cut. It's one not a lot of people would know, but it's one you think people should know.
Wow, that's a great question.
Is it?
That's a great question.
DJs in particular are my favorite people to ask this question.
Oh, man.
Because y'all know some deep cuts.
So, man, I have multiple.
Hey.
I have multiple that are kind of hit my brain. So I grew up a huge Bone Thugs fan. I think I mentioned them earlier. The Faces of Death album, I think, was their first or second album. That was a pretty dope album.
Hell yeah.
And then in my high school, college days, I became a huge 3-6 Mafia fan.
Oh, hell yeah.
So the Hypnotized Camp Posse album, that, had Tear the Club of Thugs and all that other stuff. Man, DJ Paul, Juicy J, all those guys, Crunchy Black, Lord Infamous, like LeChat, Gangsta Boo. Like that was the music I felt like I really grew up on for a while. So I think that album to me is just, I still listen to that album. Oh, and then, I was a huge Jermaine Dupri fan.
Oh, hell yeah.
Any of the 3 So Def Bass All-Star albums, that's where Lil Jon got his first make. That's where Pitbull first got put on, right? Probably 10 years before he was even out as an artist, right? Under Pitbull, right? So I think those albums too, the So Def Bass All-Star albums, those are my cuts, man.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Those are some quality recs right there.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, but with that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
This has been fun.
Yeah. And this has been another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. I'm Jimmy.
I'm Pyum.
And we're signing off. Later, y'all.
That's a wrap.
This is not a podcast. This is a show.
Keep jamming.